This is the reading for the 14th of June until the 20th. Let's dive in and take a look at what's going on. As you know, I travel a lot. I'm in a library working, so it's kind of a sterile environment, and I don't have the video totally on. Okay, let's dive in and see what's there for this week for all of us that are going to listen to this, and I'm including your energy in it. Okay. The message is keep things tight to you that are important to you. We've seen that many times, putting it in here, keeping it, maybe in this case, protected, not safe, but protected. But there's this other position of pushing back, of actually physically pushing something back and keeping it at bay. It might be the naysayers. It might be people, there's a lot of reflection on my glasses. It might be people who are unsure of what their intent with you might not be exactly what you're intending or what you want with them. And so it's better to push back on them and say, I'm not interested in that, or that's not going to work for me, so that there's clarity in what you're offering and what you're receiving. That needs to be clear, a clear boundary. What we've been experiencing in humanity has been a lot of boundarylessness. So this isn't a surprise to me. And we don't think that we're boundaryless, but that is what happens when there's ample dysfunction and very little clarity around the dysfunction. It makes us operate through posturing in all these different ways to prevent lack of belonging, to prevent abandonment. But you can't prevent abandonment. What's really happening is we're holding up relationships that aren't actually true for us, meaning the truth in the relationship hasn't come out and been clear to us. And it means that's the potential, is if that can happen, maybe the relationship is fine for us. But if it can't happen, we're going to be in a struggle of constantly upholding it in order to scrap for a shred of belonging instead of actually purely belong. Okay, let's take a deeper look here and see what follows. There's temptation to a treasure. So there's some relationship to security in the sense of financial security. And the temptation is, do you take this or do you do that? So perhaps we will, during this week, have a choice that we're presented with. It could be something that we already are having low feelings about, or it could be something that we feel really good about, but we're a little bit reticent or tentative to really feel like I can do this. So what I'll say about that second point is we might be lacking some belief in ourselves and questioning, self-judging. Some of these things might come up. There might be some frustration because we've tried it before and we think, why would I do this again? But the universe is throwing us some curveballs. In a way, it's telling us, this is who you really are. And you already knew it long ago. It just wasn't time for you to bring that out. And as frustrating as that is, it's part of the process, which I hate that part of the process, or trust the process. This is part of the evolution of where we're headed. And a lot of people that are working in this to bring forward this future that we can be resilient, ditch emotion in the way of we've resolved it, we've healed ourselves, and then we're on a journey that we're open to the possibility of expression. We feel safe and we can expand. That gives us the opportunity to really step forward dynamically in our life. That there's this reticence of, can I do it? Is it possible? Is it safe? And really the main piece is it safe? When we're holding up a life and scrapping for belonging, which we don't think we are, but we're doing that, that's where it becomes troublesome, because we wonder constantly if we're safe. That's why everybody's nervous system is so whacked out, is we're wondering, are we safe? Okay, I've driven that home. You've got it. Now you've got it. Let's go deeper here and hold true to yourself. So when I see that, I think of muscle testing where you hold strong. And you know, if it's the answer is no, it's just really wimpy. And if it is correct, it's strong. That we're holding true to who we are. We aren't going to question ourselves or say, you know, based on somebody else's information. We may even, I know last week it was about not sharing with people, keeping it to yourself toward the later part of the week. We're still in that to some degree. We don't want to give away all the things or say all the things that are going to expose what we're doing. And the reason is it's about you relating with it and believing in it without anybody giving you validation. And that's what this model and this system has really perpetuated, is saying we need validation. We need to know it's something that will work. And then if you've been somebody who's been doing this a long time, you've been trying to work towards something or trying to move forward in your life, and it's not worked and it's not worked and it's not worked. There can be some post-traumatic stress disorder there too about, can I do it? Is this going to be the time? And there might be frustration and this sense of rallying. Ask for support from outside of you. Come on, universe, pay out, pay up, help me out, for God's sakes, quite literally. But this isn't regarding God. My readings aren't necessarily about that. Let's take a deeper look yet. And when we're going to the drawing board, it's about crumpling it up and starting again, and crumpling it up and starting again. Being aware of ourselves in the process. Did that feel good? Ooh, my shoulder freed up. I bet that was good action for me to take for my work or for myself, or that type of relief of going out on the walk really freed me up. I'll even notice, I think we're doing a lot of detoxification this year and releasing a lot of old things we don't even understand. And sometimes when I go on a walk out in nature, I will yawn and yawn. That's all detoxification, right? And it's the nervous system calming down. Like, oh, okay, I don't have to hold all of this up. And then sometimes when I go out on a walk, I don't yawn at all, right? So there's some processes are going on within our bodies to change, move us into that change. And we're just to roll with it, but recognize, okay, I yawned a lot, or boy, that really relaxed me. Maybe you want to go and sleep in a tent in the woods because your body needs to be outside so much right now. You decide, but be aware of what your body needs and what relaxes it, because that's a massive sign to your direction that you head in your real power. We've heard a lot of astrologers say this, and it's take a risk. And what I hear is take action and step forward in a way that might be more bold than you're willing to do or you have been in the past. It's not about being sassy or too savvy, or I've got this marketed in such a way. It is really in being you. And are you willing to do that? That's a massive risk because you spent your whole life not doing that, even though you probably think you have. But whether you held back emotionally or you hid that, or you didn't speak up, or you, whatever, we're all in this jumble of reigniting. How do we be who we are? And I just was on an event today that I host called the Circle of Knowing, where I said to the group that you perhaps were in a situation where being in Generation X gives us an advantage because we lived as children knowing who we were far more than the generations that followed. So there's this nice piece of that's why I think our generation is at a powerful place to be leaders in this, because we knew a very different world where there was very little tech available, as if, I mean, maybe when I was born, there was none. I mean, some, that sounds like we're churning butter. We weren't, but there was very little compared to 8 years later. There were quite a few things going on. We had simple computers and games that were computerized that were, again, simple, but it was starting. And so our generation got to build into that. And that's why we at least have a foothold of understanding in it to some degree. I know our children think we don't, but they're just further in it because they were born into what was already really quite big. We weren't. But that's important. If you're in that generation, you remember who you were when you were young. You weren't influenced by so many things. We can cultivate that again, but in a new way. We're under a very different type of energy. But your power was there as a kid. You did probably speak up or no. So go with that. Okay. There's also a message about finding peace with yourself. And it is that comment of peace within. Where do we sense that in our body? And it feels like the kind of appropriate place for it to be right now is either in that solar plexus or the sacral chakra. It feels more so in the sacral chakra, which is creativity. And the creativity is where we will be expansive. So it's no surprise that it's there, that is where we create and bring things forward. Think about a mother being pregnant. It's behind the belly button, right? That's where the baby resides. That's where creation happens. Even for public speakers, they'll say, carry your energy behind your belly button. And people will pay attention, that it's more powerful. And it is. I've practiced with that when I speak, being up in my head, having my energy over here or there. People start yawning. They start looking at their phones. They start reaching for mints in their purse to stay awake. And as soon as I move that energy back down in my belly, they all pay attention. They're all with me. And I think it's almost an invitation of a child saying, come on, let's create together. Let's be in this together. There's magic in it, but it's no magic. It's just innately human. There's also this piece when I said, don't share your ideas with another. It says, transfer your ideas to another. But what are they going to do with that? What will happen with that is when we take somebody else's work, we make it into a trend because we're trying to market it off of not having the foundation of what it is. This drives me nuts. People that are just really good at marketing and they get out there and they're like, they're the expert, when actually they don't have a lot of information. They don't have a way to say, this is how this really began. They did create an origin story, but sometimes they've hidden the source of where that idea actually came from in its original form. Drives me nuts. Don't follow trends. That isn't a working system. It is part of the model. It's a control situation. You follow yourself. And you might say, well, I was drawn to this person and so on. Great. You adopt that for a few minutes, then ditch it. Go beyond it. That's what I challenge you to do, is go beyond it. That's expansion. When you can push into it to think beyond it or experience beyond it or act beyond it, that's what being human really means. And it's not about being larger than life. That could be the quietest thing anybody does. It's about the experience and knowing that was for you. That's why we're so limited in our ability to have new ideas, is we're not expanding beyond what other people are telling us because we were taught in school and in our home and at the doctor's office and by this person that we need to stay in this system because that's how it works. And I'm not saying go be lawless or ruleless. It just means your expression is something that expands humanity and it brings the needed parts and pieces to humanity to solve the problems we have going on. And that's why we aren't solving these problems. We have several people thinking of the ideas, but in truth, if all people were expressing on that, we'd have a very different situation going on in our world. There's a message about being methodical too. Get your ducks in a row, get things ordered and organized, make a list, and then be able to accommodate and work out to get some of those things not only marked off on the list, but also it's a sense of achievement for you to know that you're headed in the direction of your power. And that changes something within us. I'll say it this way. It could change the fractal patterning of what our parents showed us. Like if a parent was overwhelmed, say that your mother was always overwhelmed, that then when we're expressing in this expansion of who we are and we start taking action on that, even though we don't know what the hell we're doing, we just go ahead and do it blindly. We're like, well, I think this is the next thing. Let's try that out. That what happens is all of a sudden you might feel less overwhelmed. Your brain is a little clearer. And that's a sign you're breaking through what is your lineage patterning. And that's exactly what we're meant to do. That free up is your signal that you're on the right path. It's different. There's not this validation of somebody throwing money at you. Maybe there is too, but more so it's a self-evaluation. It's a sense of, boy, my body feels different. And that feels better to me. That's a working situation. That's powerful. That's what we want and where we want to head. There's also this message and a note that you aren't in this alone. You are in good company with other people who are experiencing the same thing. The trick is We are experiencing it on our own wavelength. And that's why we can't get information from others. We need to express it and line up with who we are. So others and talking to them a lot won't help us stay who we are. Well, get into who we are. We'll stay as we were. Because those relationships too may have cultivated us being in a state of belonging and scrapping in a way that we were not being who we were to stay in that belonging. And that's tricky. We've got to be a little bit quieter, a little bit more with ourselves to heal it. This isn't a time to be sitting on the couch and watching shows. I mean, we could do a little of that. This is a time to be contemplating or being quiet with yourself or taking in a beautiful book about a foreign place, or it's about beauty and cultivating that in your experience to move you into a greater state of creation. And it's good. If you're resisting it, that's fine. You're just going to have signs that you're resisting it. Your body might get tense. Your guts might hurt. You might start overthinking or feel more anxious. And that will be your cue. I've got to get into this creativity. I need to take action, even if there's not clarity there. And that can be a beautiful thing, because when we trust at that level of my senses to create this, we actually are moving from a state of mild self-expression into a state of fulfillment. Trust is the bridge in between those two, whereas fear to self-expression, the bridge there is vulnerability. And you're being vulnerable by saying, I'm just going to go ahead and take action on this thing. I'm going to go ahead and do it. Whether it's right or wrong, or it's going to take or it's not, I'm in it. This is what feels right. This is what frees up my body, makes me feel really saucy. Good. It's powerful. It is. It means we are on our path, right? And the anxiety and depression means we're off our path. It's okay. How do we get on our path? How do we stop being frustrated? We can ask the universe that. Show me how to move through. Show me. Okay. And you might feel wild a bit this week where there's this burst of anxiety. And it's probably astrological, where you're like, what do I do with this? How do I make sense of this? What does make sense? And the reality of that is you want to stay in the abstraction of it. And if you can remember that you're in the abstraction. Okay, so we're talking about wildness and feeling anxious inside. It's our unsettledness. And the best thing in this energy that I'm seeing to do is to hang with it. It is just to sit still and engage. What is the anxiety? What is the source of it for me? And how do I release myself from it and come through? And this might be where you ask for support from the other side, whatever that is for you. Hey, help me feel at ease, help me calm, help me see the direction to head or what to do. But really, all that we're doing is releasing resistance. And it doesn't mean that we're moving into what we need to do when we're having these moments of wild anxiety or wildness feeling inside. Maybe an unsettledness is a better way to say it. And it will just come in little spurts. It's more the awareness of it's just a temporary moment that I'm feeling this, so that we don't exacerbate it and make it happen longer. And it's going to pass quickly for me. And we can ask for support outside of ourselves, or we can just hang out through it. We could breathe. We could put our hand on our body and breathe. We could do both of those things. We can there are a whole bunch of things we can do. But to get into that, I won't go too far with that. If you're interested in all of that, I do have a membership with the Circle of Knowing, and I share things like that with my clients to understand a multitude of ways that we can meet these processes so that we can learn what works for us and what doesn't. That we don't necessarily need a regular practice, but we need to know what to connect to for certain things for our own selves, and that's unique to us. That's what I encourage. Yeah, it's just find what's unique to you and what works for each thing that you experience, and then use that. And maybe it won't work, so that you have to find something new. That's also part of the deal, is we're learning about all of these different modalities, and you're learning about the perfect ones that you need to know about, as did I, and still I do. It also comes up not to underestimate our power with what we are experiencing in that wildness. We can override it ourselves. For some of us, that might be mental. For some of us, it might be emotional. And for some of us, we might even move into it physically, to somatically, or exercise or do something to work through and move through. But don't underestimate your power in that. I guess the point that I'd say is that this is my work, but it's, and the more willing you are to know the truth versus to tell people this is how it is, this is what I experienced, and so on, the more you just know this is what I'm going through. And I'm going to know that for myself. And I'm going to make choices around that. I'm not going to go to this event and I'm going to go and see these people, or I'm going to just stay quiet by myself today. That's the power in it. The real power is our choice, right? That we have the power of choice. And I think people do say, you always have a choice. Sometimes we don't. And I'm not necessarily an advocate of thinking that way, but in this case, we do and can make choices so that we heed our power versus do what's right for other people. Well, they are uncomfortable going to that party themselves. And I said I'd go, so now I'm going to go. But something's changed for you. And you say, I'm sorry, I'm not going to go. I hope that you can find somebody else who can go with you, or you go by yourself, or not even say that. I just am not going to be able to go. We're honest. And something magical might happen for that person, that they do reach out to somebody that maybe they didn't think they could, and that person goes with them, or they go by themselves and they learn something incredible about who they are personally. That is really powerful, because it gives them the power to see their own power, but their own ability to expand. And we tend to not allow those opportunities, especially in the enabling and the authoritarian positioning. Everything is coming out of control. We don't realize that, but that's what's going on. I'll tell a quick story here. I was in New York years ago at the Jacob Javits Center for a conference, and it was about a paper conference. It was about greeting cards and so on. And downstairs, there was this beautiful bathroom, not conference, but you know what I mean, convention. And it was mostly pieces from Portugal. And so I had these beautiful shoes on, and I thought, I really want to go down and see that other show. And I got down there and I started walking around, and my feet hurt so much because I had blisters that had popped that I thought I was going to scream. It was just burning and painful, and ugh. So I stood there for a minute in so much pain, and I said, I'm going to find 2 clean wrapped Band-Aids for these blisters, and I'm going to be okay. And I got up to the main lobby a bit later and was walking in the center of the lobby, and there were 2 fresh Band-Aids in their wrappers sitting on the floor together. And I walked 10 feet past them and I stopped. And I didn't pick them up because I felt like those belonged to somebody else. Somebody dropped those. And then quickly it funneled in. But the person that dropped those Band-Aids may have needed to ask for help, because maybe they were always prepared and they needed to go to the first aid station and ask for Band-Aids. And these were left for me. I asked for them, and there they are. So I took the Band-Aids and put them on as quickly as I could. And I felt so much better, and I felt supported by the universe. And then I thought, that other person is having an experience that they need to support themselves based on what came forward for me. So do you see the full cycle of that? It's important that we let people have those experiences, even with parents that if we are parenting with a co-parent and we don't agree with how they're parenting, maybe they are gaslighting the child. We don't say to the child, oh, they're gaslighting you, or, oh, I've got to protect you. We say to the child, I see that you know what's going on for you, and I hear that you understand that. I see it. Do you see it? And the child will probably say, yeah, I know what's happened there. Okay, then you know. And the point of that is that we're telling the child there's this other anomaly or situation that's saying you don't know, or you did something that you didn't do and you're being told you did. But the child knows what truly happened. And then there's somebody reinforcing that what the child sees is accurate for the child. And this is how we think to help mitigate these problems in a relationship or a situation. That's kind of a high level one to say right here. But we want the child to be supported, but that child was born to that experience. And I don't want to take that away from them because I don't want them to marry that or deal with that in the future. But if they understand that they know and they can trust that, they're incredibly powerful, right? They know when things are accurate and when they aren't, and they can call it out or make choices around it that are very powerful for their life, make a long-term strategy or a short-term strategy. That's what we want. So it's a little bit of an example, push it a little further. Okay, so what I want to say in summation is this entire reading is a circle, and that is perfect. When we are healing spiritually, we might say, or we're going through experiences to clinch our greatest humanness, it goes in a circle, and the circle will cycle. And then we might move to a different type of circle that is cycling and has a facet of that going on. But this week is about coming full circle in something. And it's about understanding ourselves to a certain degree that we are able to express and not being afraid to express. So what we're addressing is fear and our sense of safety. And what is that for you? What creates safety? Who in your life creates safety? Who can you confide in and not leave and think about it? You feel solid, you feel supported. If you don't have anybody, don't be shocked. It's okay. I've had points in my life where I didn't, and I thought people were friends and they weren't. It's okay. But we're recognizing where is that so we can start cultivating greater relationships and support and relationship with ourselves so that we allow ourselves to be safe and feel our own support. Powerful week, powerful energy. Thanks for joining me here. I hope that this has supported you. Check out my work and my website and like, share, and follow. Comment. Let me know what this means to you. What came up for you when you were hearing this? Thanks.